second in-person Xenomai workshop in China. It's amazing to be here, and I also enjoyed being in China, as you see from the picture. This is taken from last year's Wuxi event, or around the Wuxi event. I'm very thankful to be here. Thanks to all the sponsors. That's great to have the opportunity to be here and share, well, our views of the community, with a growing community here, and get your ideas, hopefully, from discussions. So I'm very looking forward to that. So my talk this time will be not so much about all the details of technology, more about the community aspects around it. So the Xenomai project, how to evolve it in a global community, how to really work together on that technology for a long future. So, brief overview. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of the technology. There will be other talks today, and there were other talks in the last year. So it's really about the evolution. I want to look into the current state of the community, help you a little bit, giving some hints about developer and contributor support. Also talk about things moving forward, so where are new elements coming into the project and how to address them. So let's look back a bit, a long while ago. So actually the Xenomai project is around now for 23 years, quite long. It started in early, this one for translation, okay, no problem. It started in 2001, actually originally with the idea to enable porting from classic RTOSes to Linux, having a portability framework. And back then there were many of these real-time extensions for Linux. I'm not sure if you heard about RTI, but this was one of the technologies, and Xenomai became, so to say, part of that in the early versions. Things evolved and ideas were different in different communities, in different parts of the community. So the Xenomai project, as more like you know it today, became standalone, separate in 2005. Times where already I was following it, so you see I'm involved in that community. The project became independent of the RTI again. It developed its own kernel patching or a new kernel patch for the mainline kernel. And it had a broad support of architectures, processor architectures. By then up to 6 were supported. So the Xenomai 3, that's possibly you heard about more these days, what is the, so to say, the state of the art. That was first released in 2015 only, and it took a long while to get to that version. 5 years of development were done. A new core was developed for the co-kernel, and we also had support for running parts of the ideas of Xenomai also on a standard mainline kernel, the Mercury part. So the project was growing, at least from the technical perspective, over the years, but actually who was carrying the project? And this is a slide I presented in 2018, doing some little statistics about who is actually driving the project. And if you look at the list of names here, some you may recognize, there weren't that many. So Philippe Jérôme, the founder of the project and the core maintainer, obviously, is the key player, was the key player. Jill was there. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years before that already. So one of the key contributors to the project was no longer there. I was there already, driven by the use cases we have at Siemens, and some other people. So actually Henning, for example, was a colleague of mine of that. And there were contributors coming in, but also leaving again. And that was in 2018, actually it was in 2017 already, where Philippe raised this point, the kind of obvious thing, the famous term elephant in the room. This is no longer sustainable if we continue like that. There were many users, but there were so few people actually contributing to the core. So we at Siemens, we decided, because we were running Xenomai for a while, we don't want to switch, we cannot easily switch, we rather have to invest more. So we also assigned more engineers at that time on the project, not full-time, but at least to have a certain share of their time to work on the project. But that was not enough, and actually Philippe said, yeah, I would like to move on, not with the technology, or not with moving away from the technology, but moving away from dealing with the daily business of the Xenomai project. We need a new maintainer. And that was even more alarming, obviously, also for us as user, as key user. What do we do? Do we move on with our products, with our technology, from one day to the other? Or do we go all in and say, okay, we take the responsibility here as well? So when Philippe approached me on that topic, what do we do? Would you take it over? I go back to my colleagues and said, what do you do? Do you want me to take over? We agreed on that's the way forward. And also internally, we built up this community also of budgeting the activity. So I was able in 2019 to do, as a new maintainer of the Xenomai 3 series, my first release, so to say. So far I was only contributor. And Philippe moved on, and then he was focusing on a new core development. So really back again to technology and not doing the community work, so to say, for the existing Xenomai project. So the Xenomai 3 series evolved. We had major releases, we cleaned up things, added a new architecture, dropped some older ones. We had further releases to improve also the support for newer kernel versions. Moving forward, adopting the dovetail kernel patch, for example, and where we are just recently released the 3.3 version, which is now really focusing on this new kernel patch only and newer kernels. We are year 2038 ready, so when the clock is stopping or turning around in a couple of years, the core can handle that case, provided your application can handle it as well. So yeah, we are moving forward. That's the Xenomai 3 series. And as I presented last year, there's also now a new series, Xenomai 4. Also that one is evolving. So it started earlier in development, but the first release was in 2019. So you see, Philippe moved to that side and did his first release based on the 5.0 kernel at that time. It was using the dovetail kernel patch as well, but it has a new core and a new library, and it's in a different way, so to say, maintained. Yeah, there were also stable releases over the time, so he's working out a model where a certain set of kernel versions are stably or longer time maintained. And the library is also evolving along that line. Last year we also learned that there is Rust support for the Xenomai 4 series as well. There are Rust crates available. And where we are right now, so the last stable version, long-term stable version is 6.6 based, 6.12 is on the horizon, very close. We have regular releases of this library, and we have regular releases of the Rust binding as well. Just recently also, Philippe announced that he's now completely enabled the real-time networking support in that Xenomai 4 series. And then there was the announcements. We will hear one later on today about POSIX support for Xenomai 4. So far this was custom API only, but POSIX is on the horizon as well. So you see two sides of the community. And actually, this sounds like there was a fork, there was a split. But actually, we try to avoid that. I left out some point here, because in 2020, I discussed intensively with Philippe, how do we move forward? We still have common ground, even if the core is renovating. For Xenomai 4, for EVL as it's called, we have common ground to share, and we have common know-how to share, so that we developed the vision of having a path to move from Xenomai 3 to Xenomai 4 if you want to, without dropping everything that you have developed as application developer so far. So this common Xenomai platform, this idea and the specification was started by that point. Because the key point is, and the key realization for us as community, as Xenomai community, well, we are not that small, but still we are the niche. If you're honest with yourself, if you look at the real-time Linux community, the co-kernel approach, as good as it is, it's not what most people will do. So most people will use the preemptor T, the native preemption patch for Linux right away, because it's good enough. It's part of mainline now. With the release of 6.12 for x86 and for ARM, 64-bit, and for RISC-V, preemptor T is mainline. Problem solved. At least for those who are happy with that. Also, the focus of hardware vendors, of silicon vendors, of accessory vendors, and people who are integrating for real-time on Linux is obviously on that one first. So if we are honest with ourselves, if we want to continue this idea of co-kernel, Xenomai is now the key point to gather the community and keep it together. So it's a well-known brand. It's around for more than 20 years. People recognize this. It's recognized also for its long availability. Despite all the troubles we have in the community, this small size of the community, it stick together, it hold together, and we were able to continue that in production. I mean, this is not a hobby project. It's really used in production for many years in various products and various applications. So it is a brand to keep. It's worth to keep, even if details evolve over time. And there is the common ground I mentioned between the two branches, so to say, the two version lines. The kernel patch, the enabling patch, how to get the real-time or the hooks into the mainline kernel that you can do the different way of scheduling, the co-kernel scheduling. That is shared, so why develop it separately? We have to share this code. The co-kernel principle, as I said, this is deep into the design and debugging experience of people involved here. And it's even across the different implementation of the cores. And there are obviously some improvements that have been done for Xenomai 4, which are not part of Xenomai 3. But the principles are the same, and the people who understand the one thing can also deal with the other, and vice versa. So it's not really making sense to split that off and work differently. And testing concept infrastructure are also shared. So this was the idea to keep this thing, Xenomai, even for different main versions, together as one project. So back to where we are standing with the contributions, and I'm measuring here only the code contributions. And to talk about contributions for a long while, there are many ways of contributing, like sponsoring this event. This is for code. This is what you can see, so to say, if you download the things. And you see from the statistics here, I left the number of patch sets here, and also did this random cut of less than 10. You can argue about it, so there are more contributors. This is good. But if you look at the last 5 years now again, from 2024 back to 2019, who is contributing? There is a change, but if you look at the distribution line, there's still some cluster, I would say. The good news is there are now contributors also from China. This is great, given how, well, probably new for you it is to work on this area and work with Xenomai. New compared to, again, 20 years, as we do it. This is good to see, but obviously there's room for further improvements, I'm pretty sure. This is for Xenomai 3. So this is the part that I'm maintaining. Xenomai 4, the statistics look a little bit different. Too different, I would say still. So Philippe is obviously, he's the genius behind this idea. He was developing it and driving it, so he's dominating the statistics. There are way more users than just him and his use cases. But the contributor side is still improvable, I would say. And also on the shared part, the dovetail patch, the foundation for Xenomai 4 and Xenomai 3, we see also there's a dominating cluster again. Philippe is the original founder of this and the author of the patches, but also coming again from our contribution side, on the Siemens side, where we obviously have the touch points. It doesn't mean that we have to dominate the patches, but if we find bugs, obviously we try to fix them. That's where our patches come from. but that is basically, that's it. There could be more, I would say, on that side. So, already talked about the current roles in the project, so who's who, maybe interesting for you to understand the structure also. So on the Xenomai 3 side, you see me as the maintainer, as I said, for now 5 years. I'm maintaining the main core code base for Xenomai, which is a combination of user space and kernel space part. I'm also maintaining, which is fortunately not too much effort, the stable trees, so Xenomai 0, Xenomai 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, and now recently 3.3. I'm trying to keep it up. Backporting fixes which are critical. I mean, the less or the older the version becomes, the less you have to backport there. We do have users in 3.0 inside our company. We have users in 3.2. We do not have on 3.1, but I recently asked if 3.1 is important for some users in the community. Someone raised their hand and said, okay, it's easy enough to do that, let's continue. At least by backporting, but obviously testing is another aspect of that. For that, I'm also maintaining the Xenomai images as missing repository, which contains example images and test images. It's also part of our test infrastructure. Come to this later. On the Xenomai 4 side, the roles are that Philippe is maintaining that. Both the kernel part here is separate from the user space part in contrast to Xenomai 3, and the user space elements, libdpl and the Rust binding. My only role in that is to enable the Xenomai images support also for Xenomai 4. That's basically where there's a touch point for me with Xenomai 4 on the maintenance side. The dovetail patches again are maintained by Philippe for the latest kernel and for 2 stable kernels, LTS kernels. That is currently 6.1 and 6.6. That will change soon. We just discussed it recently. So Philippe will move to 6.1 as a super long-term CIP kernel. If you heard about it, this is what we are trying to maintain in the Civil Infrastructure Platform project for 10 years. While 6.1 will go end of life at the end of 2026. CIP kernel 6.1 will live until 2020. I'm not totally sure. I think it's around 2030. And we will also move forward to 6.12 kernel. So the 6.6 kernel actually is, if someone is interested in that one, is possibly looking for a maintainer. So Philippe will not maintain that version anymore. My role in that, I took over when Philippe stopped maintaining this 5.10 and 5.15 kernel, LTS kernels for dovetail patch. We have users on 5.10, we don't have as 5.15, but it was easy enough. I'm also maintaining a flavor of the branches, meaning the forward merging branches. So Philippe is rebasing the patch series all the time. I'm trying to merge the fixes in so that you can follow that if you have anything on top by merging rather than by rebasing. That's what some of our users requested. It's easy to do. That's what I'm doing also for 6.1 and 6.6 right now. Probably will then move to 6.12. A colleague of mine, Florian, we discussed recently how to spread a little bit more the work, but also the knowledge of maintaining the dovetail kernel between more people. So Florian will pick up the task of forward porting the dovetail patch, at least for every other release. So currently 6.12 was done by Philippe again. 6.13 we now agreed will be done by Florian, obviously mentored by Philippe so that we can pick up what's not written there in form of code or in form of comments and learn from that and be able to handle the task. That is the key point to move forward. Yeah, and on the iPi patches side, this is the legacy patches. I'm still maintaining 2 versions 4.4, actually 3 versions, 4.19 and 5.4, but the last 2 only for x86. and that will eventually also probably be in danger if no one speaks up and says this is needed and useful. And you already see if you are on ARM side, you don't have, except for the very old 4.4, you don't have support anymore. So, how is the community organizing itself? How is the community interacting? So we have the primary channel, historically, keep in mind we are a 20 years old project on a mailing list that moved around, but now it's on Linux Dev. There's also the archive on the kernel.org site. This is the main discussion point where you find, so to say, everyone. If you can, if you want to, this is where you can ask questions, where you can submit contributions. That's the main channel. We also have the bi-weekly Zoom call organized by Intel, our partners here. There's a reminder sent out on the mailing list for this call as well. It's friendly also to the Chinese time zone. You can join in, and quite a few of you are, I think, from time to time there. That's nice. Philip has, for the Xenomai Foresight, also a metrics channel for discussions, instant messaging. So I'm not there as well, but Philip is apparently there frequently. Another resource we are maintaining that came out of discussions with key contributors is the Xenomai hackerspace that's provided for Xenomai 3 and for the now recently the Linux Dovetail kernel. It's on gitlab.com. The background is, or the idea was initially to have a place not just to drop your ideas on the mailing list and say, I would like that this is being addressed on, but rather have some persistent issue tracker, which can be implemented on gitlab.com. It can, for everyone with an account on that platform, also be modified, contributed to. The background is we are hosting the source code on source.dex.de. That is a company who's doing open source for a very long while as well, and was nicely giving us the infrastructure to have self-maintained and self-hosted GitHub instance for the maintained source code basis, but this is maintainer only. Not everyone has an account on that platform, which for the issue tracking and for the interaction topic is not really the advantage, but for archiving purposes of the resources, it's a benefit to have this kind of control. So the hackerspace is thought to be really for the exchange with people who are willing to contribute and able to contribute there. It's also a way, and this is what some of our contributors are already using, to manage your own code base. If you have larger patch sets and you want to host them upfront to posting them to the mailing list, for example. It's also a way that's something we are working on for a while. It's more complicated for us. It would be a way forward for us to enable CI and test lab access for the existing infrastructure of Xenomai. So there's another thing that we introduced together with Intel a while ago because there were complaints about accessibility of resources in Europe. It's a Git mirror. So we have a group there. There are some repositories mirrored automatically. Unfortunately, not all of them. I just recently tried again. There's the problem that there is a size for the full kernel there. Dovetail or EVL, you hit the limit. But I think there are other mirrors in China for at least these two. If not, speak up. Maybe there's a way to work around it. The idea is that this is regularly mirrored. So when I or Philip are pushing to the main repositories, the mirrors are live updated in mornings. So this is working, at least for those repositories which are not hitting the quota. So, if you have something to contribute, what could it be? I mean, obviously, the best thing is to contribute something which is pressing yourself, where you have an issue, where you have a problem. If you look beyond that, what we are maintaining issue list, and you can comment on them if you see, okay, yes, I have the same problem, or yeah, I have another aspect in this problem, it would be good to address it as well. Or if you see, okay, this is something that can help us, you can pick pick it up and assign it to yourself just to make sure that no one else is working on something twice if you say, okay, I'm already on it. You may also create new issues. If you see something which is not resolved in a few minutes by sending a message to the mailing list, but needs some longer discussion maybe, or at least some tracking, create an issue there and say, this is my problem, this is what I think should be done, and just leave it there. I mean, even if you don't solve it, it would be also a way to express, okay, here's a to-do that I see. And this is there, it's not complete. Actually, there are more aspects, and this is, I just copied it from last year's presentation. We always can improve further beyond that regarding infrastructure, test infrastructure specifically. This is also what you can ask yourself if you are using Xenomai already. Check what we are doing. Is your configuration of your system represented in what the mainline is testing and what the mainline is doing? We always look for regression tests, not just functional one. Does it crash? Hopefully not. But also does it perform as fast as the old version, as short with short latency as the old version? This is something which is important and where we need to improve also our testing. Tuning is a topic. You do that obviously for your own specific context, but maybe there are also aspects of tuning which should be shared with others in order to make sure it's easier to maintain them. Hardware. Is your hardware represented in the test infrastructure that we have, your SoC or your variant of the CPU, if it provides sufficient difference to what we are testing? There is definitely room. Same for the driver path. So how we are testing? So there are basically two elements. The publicly visible one, or the most publicly visible one, is our cloud-based CI and Lava testnet. This is what specifically I created together with my colleagues over the last years when I took over the maintenance. There were so many variants of Xenomai, so many versions. You cannot test them manually anymore. You have to make it automated. And this is the Lava Lab we have together with CI build infrastructure, funded by us, Siemens, our build, so to say, but also working together with Intel on providing some runners, additional runners. The Xenomai Images project I mentioned before is defining, so to say, what we are building here and how we are building it and how we are testing it. But, I'm the maintainer of Xenomai 3, there is a certain focus on Xenomai 3, obviously. It lacks, unfortunately, up to the stage automation for testing also EDL, Xenomai 4, in the same way. It's to be fixed. Not much to do anymore, but it's still missing. You can build images, but you cannot automatically test them right now in the same way. And this is the point, again, for my last slide. We could always attach more hardware to them. For example, because Lava is a distributed test infrastructure, this is what we already exploit together with Intel, but also even our own sites, we have multiple worker sites. So one master is managing what we built and what we want to test, and then there are sites who are offering, and I have the hardware for this. Call me if you have something to test. And this is the remote worker site for Lava. So you can, if you are interested in that, you can discuss if you can bring in your own hardware by providing a Lava test site, and we can deploy the test jobs also to your own hardware regularly on every change, not only on the releases of Xenomai. There's one catch. We still have to figure out the CI artifacts, and they are currently on AWS S3 in Europe. And given that there are some problems with the site on Intel on China here, there might be some problems related to fetching them reliably. It works in general, but sometimes it doesn't. It is not really very helpful if your job is failing, not because Xenomai is broken, but because the infrastructure has a hiccup. Because every time I get a notice there's something red, I have to look into it and see, okay, yeah, we try, and then it works. This is not really what you want to have for infrastructure. So this is what I said, this is for the Xenomai 3 side. To expand to Xenomai 4, what Philippe is doing right now, he has his own test setup for Xenomai 4. That is more like a private lab, so to say. This is used for EVL part and for the DAF maintenance as well. So before he does a release and also we pull in that release into the Xenomai 3 lab, he already has that tested in his infrastructure. But some of them are more ad hoc. There's a page on the Xenomai 4 documentation which shows basically what he has tested and what he is testing. But we need to think about it again. As I said, when my colleague will join this maintenance, it doesn't have the access to that yet. We will have to rework on that to make it more universally available also for the existing 703 and dovetail catches we have on our side. Contribution workflow. Maybe I should go to all the details to bore you, but I would like to highlight some things here. Because this is then obviously, if you have, okay, here's a one-liner, I'm fixing something, this can be cumbersome, I see. But maybe some explanations on that. So historically, the project, as I said, is email-driven. Discussion is via email. Back then, when there was no GitLab, Gitty, you name it, in the past, also the patches, the code were changed by email. So if everything around your universe is email-based, this is obviously how you manage not just this project, but many. That's why we are still email-based in our workflow, like the mainline kernel as well. But also the mainline kernel is evolving on that part. So for example, there's a new tool called V4, which can help you to manage how you send patches out, how you submit them. But in the end, it can be cumbersome if you do not have an email account, which helps you to do that, if you have problems basically with your tooling to send out the patches. So this is a situation right now that we are dealing with. It's kind of working, not for everyone as we know, but it's working enough for the maintainers obviously most, and well, if you look at who's contributing, for us it's most convenient, for others it may not be. That's the situation right now. So if you have a patch to share, try to look up specifically the contributing guide, where we've written up some stuff there, and submit your patches. I've seen quite a few already on the list. I also try to comment on some of them. Maybe some word on the process of what you expect when you send a patch to the mailing list. So the patches on the mailing list will be commented on, giving some suggestions how to improve things. Unless there's nothing to improve anymore, then I will just merge them or fill it and say thank you. If there's something to improve, please make sure that you check basically what the suggestions were and try to address them, either by sending a new version of the patch where all these points are addressed, or by saying, yeah, not quite, I don't agree on that change request for this and this reason. That's also okay. But if you just ignore a comment, that will not get your patch forward. And if you don't hear anything, please remind the maintainers. They might have been busy, they might have forgotten to change, and then they need some reminder, some friendly one. Not after a day, but after a week or two, that would be fair, that things do not fall through the cracks. And then the process can work. But again, if you see that this is actually a hurdle for you to contribute something, please speak up. We can discuss this. In the end, the community processes are defined by the major community, so by the contributors. And if no one is contributing, the few people in the core will say, this is most convenient to me, this is how we work. If many people are contributing and most say, this is not working how we do it right now, it would be way more efficient if we do it the other way. We can start to discuss it. Many projects discuss it over their lifetime, how they work, today and tomorrow. And that is something, obviously, that you can shape with us together and say, okay, if we just improve here a little bit, if you make this more transparent, or if you change here the tooling, that would greatly help me to be part of the community. Then let's discuss this. So now look forward. Some new kids on the block. I said it, new architects on the horizon, which are also interested here for the local community as far as I heard. Not only. So there are two on the list that we are currently discussing, and we will also see later on. So one is RISC 5, obviously. It has a high attention actually worldwide by now. There's an open architecture, open specification. Hardware is now fairly well available, not in all flavors, but it's moving forward. It has been merged to mainline already 7 years ago, so it's quite established there. And also we are looking forward As one of the examples of major distributions, Debian community distribution will now officially support it in the upcoming release next year. That's working pretty well. Another proposal I heard about, Blue March. That's strong interest apparently here in China, but honestly there is not much traction outside of China, to my best knowledge. The mainline kernel support is also rather fresh, 2 years old by now, but getting accepted as unofficial port means it's not going to be part of the next release, but at least there are packages being built, unstable, and people are working on that, and maybe in a few more years it will become also an official architecture. For both of them, there are proposals to also enable Xenomai. So what is common now for both of them, if you think about Xenomai support? Well, the key point obviously is hardware availability. If you don't have hardware to test in the breadth, then you cannot really work on it and make sure it's not regressing. That also involves making the hardware available, not just for you, as if you're interested in bringing this in, but also for the maintainers of the Xenomai patches, of the Xenomai core, to make sure that they are not breaking on your hardware. So how can we hook it up into our test infrastructure would be a point for them. Obviously also the software ecosystem. So how do you build a complete Linux system for that? Does it bring own problems? You don't want to deal with Xenomai unrelated problems if you are dealing with Xenomai, obviously. So if you're using a self-build, from source build, with Yocto or Buildroot or you name it, it's one way. Or if you want to go with Debian, you see already where the states are different. What I see so far, and this also makes sense, the focus is on the Xenomai 4 version. So unless there is really a strong case for enabling also Xenomai 3, I don't think we should work on that anymore. But the point will be how to coordinate the maintenance efforts here. You see, I've shown the roles of the maintainers. None of them currently is with these boards, or at least not currently with, not all of these are interesting for all of the maintainers. So how do we coordinate that if the work has to be split for every release of a new version of Xenomai, that it's ensured that also these new architectures are properly covered. That's something to clarify how to discuss it. And that's also one aspect, is not just to get it in and then be happy and then do something else. This has to be maintained. We see the releases of Xenomai, they live for many, many years. So what does it help you if now LunArch is merged in the one version, but in 2 years, that version, no one is looking after LunArch anymore for that specific version, and you have users on it, and it's breaking. Because the maintainers doesn't have the code, it doesn't have the knowledge, it doesn't have the hardware, and eventually you lose one architecture's moving forward in stable maintenance. Same for RISC-V as well, obviously. So this has to be planned into before merging this support. That's the message, I would say, from the community towards these new proposals. I'm not saying that this is unrealistic to become part of Xenomai, but we have to think about this and have some plan. Nothing is perfect initially, but we have to have some plan how to move forward, and it has to establish. So, happy to discuss this if you have points on that, also today. And yeah, this is just our thinking from the discussion we had, also a little bit with me on these topics. So to summarize, I think I copied from last year. So the core kernel is clearly here to stay. We've seen it for more than 20 years, and we've seen it at valid use cases besides PNT. The good news. It's also very great to see this traction in China. I mean, this is something I just got to hear about 4 years ago. There's someone doing Xenomai in China. Oh, wow. There are many actually. We saw the numbers and we saw the interest. This is great. There are new architectures coming in. This brings in fresh wind and fresh ideas. This is good. There's also very interesting, obviously, we don't want to stick all the time with the old versions. Move forward. Many of you are fresh on this, so you pick the latest version. So you bring in traction on Xenomai 4 while existing users had it kind of conservative. Let's stay with the old, it's working, why should I move forward? You bring in just a fresh wind on the new version. But make sure that this also brings in more contributions, also on the fresh versions. You see in the numbers, there's room for improvements. So this is clearly the message. The co-kernel community is not really large compared to other communities. We're not doing cloud computing. This is way more attractive to bring in a lot of people. It's hard work as well in some areas. So we have to work together with this. Make it stronger, make it sustainable. It's not there for a year and then you take something else. It's here really for decades. We want to maintain this for decades because your products, your solutions, your problems, they live that long. So the software has to live that long as well. If you see problems in contributing, if you have proposals how to make it better, please speak up and we try to address them and we try to make this really a global community.